Hello everyone, this is Ryan King and welcome to this Blender tutorial series where we're going to be creating this complete dog character in Blender. Now this tutorial idea was actually from Jessica, one of my viewers. So Jessica sent me some of her 2D character drawings that she's done, and she was wondering if I could make a video where I sculpt one of her characters that she's drawn. And so I looked through the drawings that she sent and I saw this really cute dog character, Marley the Beagle Puppy, and I thought this would be a really cool character to create in 3D. And I've also been wanting to make some more sculpting videos on my channel, but I haven't had very many ideas for what to sculpt, so I thought this would be a great idea. So thank you, Jessica, for sending in this really awesome dog artwork. This is really cool, and thank you for letting me make a tutorial using your concept. So the first thing that we're going to do is create a base mesh for our dog character, and then we're going to go into sculpt mode and sculpt the dog. After that, we're going to decimate our sculpt so that it has less topology, and then I'm going to show you how to UV unwrap your sculpt without having to do any retopology or anything like that. Because we're not going to be animating this dog character, we're just going to be creating the final render, so I'm not going to be retopologizing the dog or making it really nice. So then we're going to be UV unwrapping that sculpt, and then I'm going to set up the materials, and then we'll go ahead and texture paint the dog. After that, we're going to be modeling some more things, like we're going to be modeling the eyes and the dog collar and also the toenails on the dog. After that, we're going to do some basic rigging, and again, this rigging isn't created for animation. I'm just doing a very basic rig just so that we can pose the dog character for the final render. So we'll just do some basic rigging and then we'll pose the dog. And then after that, we're going to set up the scene, set up the camera, and we'll set up some lights as well. Then we will render out the finished image of the dog and then do a little bit of the compositing in Blender's compositor to have the final image right here. So by the end of the tutorial, this is what you'll have created. You'll have created this complete dog character. Now this tutorial series is geared towards beginners, so if you're a beginner to Blender, then you can follow along with this tutorial. Now if you're a complete beginner and you've never used Blender before, then I would definitely recommend watching my complete Blender beginner tutorial series. And as well as that, if you're a complete beginner to sculpting in Blender, then I would definitely recommend watching my Sculpting with Blender for Beginners tutorial. Again, I'll leave a link in the description and a card up there on the screen. But as long as you're not a complete beginner, if you're still a beginner, then you can totally do this tutorial. I'm going to be going very slowly and showing you the entire process in real time. So just a few things that I'm going to go over before we actually start with the tutorial. So the first thing is that I would highly recommend you use a drawing tablet for the sculpting and the texture painting if you're able to. Because when it comes to texture painting and especially sculpting, using a drawing tablet can be really helpful. It can really help you to make better artwork. Now, if you don't have a drawing tablet or you're not able to get one, then you can use a mouse and follow along with this tutorial, but the result probably isn't going to be as good, and it'll probably be a little bit harder to follow the tutorial. So again, you can still totally use a mouse, but if you can use a drawing tablet, then I'd highly recommend that. If you're interested in purchasing a drawing tablet, I have Amazon links in the video description to some tablets that I recommend, and they are Amazon affiliate links. As an Amazon associate, I earn from qualifying purchases, so if you purchase something through those links, then it will help me out, but it won't cost you anything extra. And even if you can only get a pad tablet, using a pad tablet is going to be way better than using a mouse, because a pad tablet is going to allow you to have better posture. It's going to allow you to make smooth strokes when you're trying to sculpt or texture paint, and they also have pen pressure sensitivity, which can be really important for sculpting. So that means that like when you press down harder, it's going to put down more clay, and then when you press really lightly, it's going to put down less clay. And you really can't get those features with a mouse, so even if you can just afford a cheap pad tablet, that's going to be way better than using a mouse, so I'd highly recommend that you do that if you're able to. Now, as far as resources goes, there's two things that I'm going to be using for this tutorial. So I'm going to be using this image right here. We're going to be putting this image in the background when we're creating the base mesh, and this will just help us to get the proportions right. So I'll leave a link in the video description where you can download that image to follow along with the tutorial. And then at the end of the tutorial series, when we're doing the lighting, to help us get more realistic lighting, I'm going to be using this HDRI on HDRI Haven. So I'll leave a link in the description. It's a free HDRI from HDRI Haven. It is totally optional. You can light your scene however you like. Also, if you'd like to help support me and also download the finished Blender file of the dog character that we're creating, then you can do that over on my Gumroad store. The link is in the description. And also my patrons over on my Patreon page will be getting that as well. And one last thing before we get started with the tutorial, I wanted to thank this video's sponsor, Sketchfab. Sketchfab is a 3D model site where you can preview 3D models in your browser. You can even view them on a phone, tablet, or in VR and AR. They also have a huge 3D model store where you can purchase models and assets. You can also apply to sell your own 3D models on the platform. Check out Sketchfab with the links in the description. Alright, so here we are in a new scene in Blender. Now, throughout the tutorial, if you'd like to see the buttons that I'm pressing, my screencast keys are going to be right down here in the corner, so you can see what buttons I'm pressing as we're creating this. So we're going to start off by just deleting everything. So let's double tap A to select everything, and then I'm going to press X and delete. Now, if you'd like to, you can go ahead and download that reference image just so that you can get the proportions right. If you want to just eyeball the modeling, that's totally fine, but the link is in the description if you'd like to get that reference image. So what I'm going to do now is press 3 on the number pad to go to side view. And then I'm just going to drag in the dog reference image, and you can see when I drag it in, it just adds it in as this plane here, and we can see that image. So let's press 3 again to go to the side view, and I'm just going to start by scaling this up, and then just kind of bringing it over here to kind of the center of the scene. I'm actually going to just put the dog's torso in the center of the scene there. Also the timeline, I'm not going to be using this timeline, so I'm just going to click right here when the crosshair appears, drag up, drag down, and then just let go, and that'll just close the timeline. Okay, so let's press Shift A, and I'm going to go to Mesh, and I'm going to add a UV sphere. So we're just going to start off by creating this as a base mesh, and then we'll go into sculpting, and we'll join them together, and then start sculpting the dog. So I'm just going to press G to grab, bring this over, and then press S to scale, and scale it up, and just kind of place it right there, okay? Let's duplicate this now. So to duplicate this, I'm going to press Shift D to duplicate. And then I'm going to click and hold down with my middle mouse wheel and then let go. And that'll constrain it to the Y-axis. And then we can just scale this down. Now, if you'd like to be able to see behind the objects, you can press Z and then move your mouse over, and that'll go into wireframe view. So I'm just going to select this, scale it down. So now let's press Shift A, and I'm going to click here on cylinder. I'm going to rotate this cylinder so that it's sideways. So let's press R to rotate. Type in 90 and then enter. And then it's too big right now, so I'm just going to press S to scale. We'll just scale that down. And then I'll also press S and Y, scale it up on the Y-axis. And then I think I'll just scale this up a little bit. And then I will press tab to go into edit mode. And I want to add a loop cut in here so that I can scale it down a little bit. So I'm going to press Control R and then just double click to just place it right there. And then I can just scale that down a little bit. Okay, and then I want to scale this up a little bit, so I'm going to hold down the Alt key and select this loop here. So it selects that entire loop, and then I'll press S to scale. We'll just scale that up just like that. Okay, if I tab back into object mode, we can just see how that's looking. So let's model the legs now. Now, before we add the legs, I'm just going to press Shift C, and that'll make sure that this 3D cursor is set to the center of the scene. I'm going to press Shift A, and I'm going to add a cylinder. Now, what I want to do is once I model one leg, I'm going to want to mirror it over so that there's both legs. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to tab into edit mode and then press G and move this out. I'll now press 7 to go to top view, press S and scale this down, and then press G and kind of bring it in here. And then we can press 3 on the numpad to go to the side view. And then let's press R to rotate, S to scale, and just kind of stick it right here. Okay, I want to kind of squish it down a little bit just because I don't want it to be quite that round. So I'll press S to scale. And then I'm going to press X and just squish it down just a little bit on the X-axis, not too much, but just a little bit. Press 3 to go to the side view again. I'm going to press Z and then move my mouse over and then let go, and that'll go into wireframe. What I want to do is just select this top part and just bring it up. So I'll press A to deselect everything, and then I'll press B for the box select and just drag and then let go, and that'll select the entire top. And then I'll press G to grab, bring that up there, and then press S to scale and scale that up a bit. Okay, let's just see how that's looking. I'm just going to double tap A to select this entire piece, and then I'll just press S and X again Just make it a little bit thinner there. And this piece is kind of popping out, but that's totally okay. We'll sculpt that and fix that later. Okay, so now with this selected, I'm just going to double tap A to make sure this is all selected. I'm going to press Shift D and just bring this down, and then I'll press R to rotate, and then S to scale. We'll just kind of bring that down there. And then I'm going to press Z, move my mouse over to go into wireframe, A to deselect everything, and then I'll just press B, and we'll just box select this top piece right here. And I'm just going to rotate it and move it up a little bit. Now this is a little bit stretched and I kind of want this to rotate over. So I'm going to add a loop cut in here. So what I'll do is press Control R. That'll add a loop cut. I'm just going to click and then just click again. And then I'll press G to grab, just kind of bring it back. Click to place that, and then I'll just press S and scale that up a little bit. Now I want to mirror this over to the other side. So what I'm going to do is click right here to the modifiers panel. You can see there's this little wrench, and I'm going to click on Add Modifier, and we're going to add the Mirror Modifier. So just click on that, and you can see that now it's mirrored it over to the other side, so we don't have to model both of them. Now, if for some reason that didn't work, if for some reason your origin point wasn't in the center and it's not mirroring over, what you can do is you can click on the mirror object, just click on this eyedropper, and then click on this object here that's in the very center, and it'll mirror it over. I'm not going to do that though, because I have the origin point in the very center, so it's going to mirror that over evenly. Okay, so now that we've done that, I'm going to press 3 again. I'm going to tab into edit mode, and I'm going to press Shift A, and I'm going to add another UV sphere. I want to put this UV sphere right in here, so I'll press G to grab, bring this over. S to scale, we'll just scale this down a little bit. Okay, you could also press Z, move your mouse over, and then let go to go into wireframe, and just see this through the mesh. I'll press 1 to go to front view, and then I'm going to press G and kind of move this over. And you can see there's the mirrored one. And then this is too long, so I want to kind of squish it down. So I'll press S to scale. And then I'm going to click with my middle mouse wheel and then make sure it's constrained to the X-axis and then let go. And we'll just scale that down just like that. So now we just need to do the same thing for the front. I'm just going to duplicate this over though, because it's pretty much exactly the same. So in object mode, I'm going to press Shift D, and then let's click and hold with our middle mouse wheel, and then let go, and that'll constrain it to the Y-axis and just bring this over. Okay, I'll tab into edit mode now, and I'm going to double tap A to make sure everything is selected. And then I want to see the background, so I'm going to press Z to go into wireframe. Now this leg, you can see it's rotated a little bit, so I'll just press R to rotate, and then G to grab, and just kind of stick it into place. I think I'll also press B to go to the box select, just box select this loop, and then just move it over a little bit. There we go, back into object mode. You can see how that's looking. That's looking great. All right, so now I want to make those feet. So again, I'm going to press Shift C, and that'll center the 3D cursor. Then I'll press Shift A, and we're going to add another UV sphere. I'm going to tab into edit mode, and that way when we model this, you can see at the origin point, which is that little orange dot right there, that doesn't move. When you're in object mode and you move it, you can see that little orange dot there is kind of moving, but when you tab into edit mode and then move it, the orange dot there, that origin point, is going to stay in the center. So I'm just going to bring this out, scale it down, and then I'm going to press 3 for the side view, kind of zoom in here, and then I'll press Z to go into wireframe, and then A to deselect everything. So I'm going to make the foot right now. So I want to make the bottom of the foot very flat. So to do that, I'm just going to press B for the box select, click and drag, and just select about this much of the cylinder, or the sphere, sorry. And then I'll press S to scale because I want to scale it down. Now, I don't want to scale it like this. I just want to scale it on the Z axis. So I'll press Z, and then I'm going to type in 0, enter. So now you can see that it's very flat. Now it's a little bit long here, so I'll press G to grab, Z on the Z axis, just kind of pull that up a little bit. All right, so that's looking pretty good, but the foot is longer, so this is pretty easy to do. I'm just going to double tap A to make sure this whole thing is selected, and then press S to scale, and then press Y, or you can click and hold with your middle mouse wheel to scale it on the Y axis. So now that's scaled out a bit, I'm just going to press G to grab, S to scale. We'll just kind of put it into place. You might need to go into wireframe again by pressing Z and moving your mouse over to go into wireframe. We'll just put that into place, and then I need to scale it down, so S to scale, Z on the Z axis, and just kind of squish that down a little bit. Okay, that's good. Let's press G, and then X, and we'll just bring that over to the center of the foot. And then I want to actually scale it down a little bit so it's not quite as wide. So I'll press S to scale, X on the X-axis, and we'll just squish that down a little bit. All right, that's looking pretty good. Tab back into object mode. Now again, we need to mirror that over to the other side. So let's click right over here on the wrench. That's going to go to the modifiers panel. We'll click on add modifier, and we're going to add the mirror modifier. And there we go, the foot is mirrored to the other side. Now again, I want that to be on the front, so I'm going to press Shift D, and then click and hold with my middle mouse wheel, constrain it to the Y-axis, and just kind of bring that over. Go into 3 for the side view so we can see that background image, Z to go into wireframe, and just kind of set this up so that it's where the foot is. Now I should have saved our Blender file earlier, just in case if Blender crashes, we better save it. So to save it, I'm going to go File, and then click on Save or Save As. And then just find somewhere on your computer, I just made a folder, and then I'm just going to call this dog1.blend. You could just call it whatever you want, and then just click on Save As. All right, so now we've saved that. Now, while we're working on the project, to save this, you can press Control S, and you can see right there it says saved dog1.blend. All right, so let's continue this. So I'm going to press 3 to go to the side view. I'm going to press Shift A. Actually, I'll press Shift C again just to make sure the 3D cursor is in the very center there. And then I'll press Shift A, and this time I'm going to add another cylinder. So we're going to be making the neck of the dog. So I'll press G to grab, S to scale. We'll just bring this down, R to rotate, and then S to scale, just kind of put it into place. You might need to go into wireframe again, and then let's tab into edit mode. I'm going to press A to deselect everything, and then I'll press B to go to the box select. Just click and drag just to select this top area, and then we'll just kind of rotate it and move it over. Okay, and then I want to add a loop cut in here so that the neck can kind of rotate a little bit, because right now it's pretty straight. So I'll press Control R, click, and then click again, and then we'll just press G, and bring that over just a little bit so that the neck is just rotating slightly. So to make the head, I'm going to press Shift A, and I'm going to add a cube. And then I'll press G to grab and just kind of put the cube over here. Now this cube is very sharp, so I want to actually round the edges. So to do that, I'll tab into edit mode. And then what you can do, if I just press Z, move my mouse over to go into wireframe, I'm going to press Control B. So Control B is going to add a bevel. Now it's still kind of sharp, so if you scroll your mouse wheel up, you can see that it's going to add more and more smoothness to that bevel. I'm just going to do something like that, so I'll just click to place that. And now you can see the cube is almost like a sphere, sort of. So I'm going to tab into edit mode, and I want to scale it up, so I'll press S to scale, Z on the Z axis, and just scale it up a little bit. And just put it into place, something like that's just fine. And then let's make the dog's like muzzle. So I will press Shift D and just duplicate this, scale it down. Just stick it right here so that it's on the front of the dog's mouth. And then I'll tab into edit mode, press A to deselect everything, and then I just want to box select this bottom part and just kind of push it into the head. So I'll press B for the box select that, and then I'll press G to grab, just kind of bring it back there, and then click to place that. I want to select this also and bring it in, so I'll press B for the box select, just select this, and then press G to grab and just kind of bring it in there. So now you can see the shape that we're getting. Now I want to make it a little bit wider, so I'll tab into edit mode, double tap A to make sure everything is selected, and then I'll just press S to scale. Click with your middle mouse wheel, just constrain it to the X-axis, and then just click to place that, just so that it's a little bit wider. And then as far as the nose goes, what I'm going to do is I'm going to tab into edit mode, and I'm going to press Control R to add some loop cuts. I want to add some loop cuts right in here, but I want to add more loop cuts, not just one. So I'm going to scroll my mouse wheel out and make 3. And then I'll just left click and then right click, and that'll hop it back to the center there. So now what I can do is press 3 to go to the face select. You can also just click right up here. And this is not the 3 on the numpad, this is your other 3 on the top of your keyboard. I'm now going to select this face and then hold down the Shift key and select these faces right here. Oh, and then also these ones right here on the other side of the dog. All right, now that I've selected that, I'm going to press E and kind of extrude this out. Okay, and then just tab back into object mode. So now we just have a little bump there for the dog's nose. Let's press 1 on the number pad, just kind of see how that's looking. 3 on the number pad for side view. So we need to make the dog's ears and then also the dog's tail. So let's go ahead and make the dog's ears. So again, I'm going to press Shift-C just to make sure the 3D cursor is in the center of the scene there. And then I'll press Shift-A, and I'm going to add a cube. Okay, let's just bring this cube over by pressing G and then clicking with your middle mouse wheel, and then G, and then I'll press Z and just kind of bring that up there. Okay, so again, I want to mirror the dog's ear over. So I'm going to tab into edit mode, and then I'll press G to grab, just kind of move this up, scale this down, and then rotate it over. Okay, just kind of rotate it over so that it's kind of sticking out of the dog's head. And then let's press 3 to go to the side view. And you can see I want to make it a lot longer. So I'll press Z to go into wireframe just to kind of see what I'm doing. And then I'm going to press S to scale, click with my middle mouse wheel, and then just kind of move that over. Okay, so that's a lot bigger now. I'm going to select the top face, go 1 for the front view, and then I can press E to extrude, R to rotate, E to extrude, R to rotate, and I'm basically just going to make the dog's ears kind of these big floppy ears. Okay, let's press 3 on the number pad for side view, go into wireframe. That's pretty good, although this is a little bit high up, so I think what I'll do is just press 1 to go to the vertex select. I'm just going to select these 2 vertices, go to 3 for the side view, and I'm just going to bring them down. So G and Z and bring them down a little bit, just so they're not quite as high. And then I think I might select these 2 vertices as well and bring them down a little bit. Okay, so you can just play around with that, get it to the size that you want. That's pretty good. So now I'm going to click on Add Modifier, and I'm going to click on the Mirror Modifier. So it mirrors it over to the other side, and now our dog has some nice ears. Now there's not very much geometry here, so I'm going to select this and then click on Add Modifier, and I'm going to add the Subdivision Surface Modifier. And then what I'm going to do is turn the levels of viewport and render both up to 2 so that it has a lot more geometry. Now, the edges aren't very sharp here, so I'm going to tab into edit mode and press Ctrl R, click, drag over, and then click to place that, and then Ctrl R to add a loop cut, click, drag over, and then click to place that. And that way, it's just going to add more geometry so that the edges are sharper. Let's go File and save this again, or just press Ctrl S. I'll press 3 on the number pad to go to side view, and I'm going to press Shift A. I'm going to click on Mesh, and then I'm going to add another cylinder. So I'll now press G to grab, S to scale, R to rotate. Just kind of put that into place. I'm also going to go into wireframe view. Just kind of bring that in there and just kind of stick it into the dog. We'll tab into edit mode now, and I'm just going to press A to deselect everything, and then press B and just box select, and just select the back of the tail. And then I'm just going to press E to extrude, R to rotate, G to grab, and then S to scale. So we're basically just bringing this down. So again, E to extrude, G to grab, R to rotate, and then S to scale again, and then E to extrude, S to scale. And we're just going to keep on doing this. So just modeling. Now, another thing that you can do is you can hold down the Control key and click, and that's going to just extrude it out and kind of rotate it. So it works well for some things, but sometimes I just like to manually add that. All right. And then if you wanted to, you could also press Control R to add some loop cuts, and then just press G to grab and S to scale, just kind of edit that. So there we go, there is the dog's tail. I think I just want to bring that out a little bit just so that there's a little bit more room there. All right, so let's press Control S again to save this, and this is the finished base mesh for the dog. So this right here, this reference image, I don't need it, so I'm just going to select it and press X and delete, because we really don't need it anymore. All right, so we're almost ready to get into the sculpting, but before we get into the sculpting, we're gonna have to join these all together into one mesh. Now, you can see that if I join these together, some of these have the mirror modifier, some of them have the subsurf modifier, and some of them don't have any modifiers. So we need to apply all the modifiers before we join them together, because if we join these two together, then it's gonna add the subsurf to this other part. So you could just click on the objects and apply all the modifiers by clicking on it, going right here, and then clicking on apply. You can also press Control A. You could do that, but there's actually a quicker way to do this. I'm just going to press A to make sure all the objects are selected, and then I'm going to go right up here to Object, and I'm going to go down here to Convert To, and then I want to convert it to Mesh. Now, it's already a mesh object, but if you convert it to a mesh, it's going to apply all the modifiers. So I'm going to click on that, convert to mesh, and now if you click on these different objects, all the modifiers are applied. So now I want to join these together, so just double tap A, make sure they're all selected, and then to join them all together, the shortcut key is Control J. So now if you tab into edit mode, you can see that they're all joined together. Now we can't start sculpting yet because if you go inside the object, you can see this is super messed up. You would have a lot of issues sculpting because all the objects are like overlapping inside the mesh. So there's a really easy way to fix this. What I'm going to do is click right over here to the sculpting tab. You could also just click on object mode and go to sculpt mode. So I'm just going to click on the sculpting tab. So how we're going to join these all together so that like this and this is connected is we are going to use this remesh right here. So if you just scroll with your mouse wheel, it'll move this over and you can see there's the remesh option. Also, if you go down here on the side panel, there is the remesh right here. So however you want to use it, you could also use the shortcut keys, which I'm going to do. When you click on remesh, if you just click on this, you can see that it remeshes our sculpt. So it just goes along here and changes it. And now if you zoom in here, you can see it's all one object. So these are connecting, like the legs connect and they go into the torso and the body and everything. That is good, but you can see this is kind of low quality and I want more detail when we're sculpting. So I'm actually going to press Ctrl Z to undo that. What I want to do is I want to change the voxel size. So the default is set to 0.1. If you turn this value down and then click on the remesh button, you can see that now it's more detailed, but you don't really have a very good visual representation of the detail size. So what you can do is you can press Shift R. So when you press Shift R, you can see that this grid comes up and it's going to show you the size of the remesh. So I want it to be pretty detailed, so I'm going to go way up here. You could also just change it to that amount if you wanted to, and then you can just click to place that. And then again, if you want to press Shift R again, just kind of move your mouse and then click to place that. So now you can see that it's changed the voxel size. Now you could just click on the remesh button, but I like to use shortcut keys to speed up my workflow. So the shortcut key is Ctrl R. And you can see that now that's a lot more detailed. If you zoom in here, you can see the faces, but it's way more detailed. But when you zoom in, inside here, you can see that all the objects have been joined together. So that's really great. Now there's a few things that we need to do before we actually start sculpting, just a few different things to set up here. The first thing that I want to do is when I sculpt this, if I just kind of click and drag, you can see it's not mirroring it over to the other side, but this dog is symmetrical. So to make this mirror over, you can see that right up here, if you click on the X, it's going to mirror it on the X. So now if I drag, you can see there's a little dot there. You could also turn on Y and Z, but we don't want that. We just want to mirror it over on the X. So now if I drag, click and drag, you can see it's mirroring that over to the other side. So that's what we want. I'm just going to press Ctrl Z to undo that. And then these settings right here to mirror it, they're also right down here on symmetry. If you click on this symmetry, you can see the X is turned on. You can turn it on and off right there. Now, a few more things that I'm going to do. One thing that I'm going to do is change the matte cap because personally, I don't really like this matte cap for sculpting. So I'm going to click right here and you can see that there's studio, matte cap, and flat. I'm going to change this to matte cap. And basically this is just a visual representation of the sculpt. So if you click on this, you can see a bunch of matte caps are going to come up. Now, you probably aren't going to see all these matte caps because I've actually added in my own matte caps. If you want to watch my tutorial on how to add in your own matte caps, I'll have a link in the video description and you can check that out. And in that video, I'll also show you how to create your own matte caps. So some of these matte caps I've created myself. So again, links in the description if you'd like to watch that matte cap video. But what I like to do is I like to use this matte cap. So you should see this one. This one is built into Blender. And I just like it because it just gives me a very good visual representation of the sculpt. I just really like it. You can see the sculpt very well. And then just a few more things. Right here on brush, I'm going to click on this and there's a few things that I want to turn on. I want to turn on this accumulate. And then I also want to turn on the front faces only, and I'll tell you what these do. So the accumulate, if I'm pronouncing that right, accumulate, what this does is if I just start to sculpt, you don't have to follow me with this, you can just watch what I'm doing. If I start to sculpt, you can see that as I continue to sculpt, it continues to come out and come out and come out. And the same thing is for if I want to go in. If I just go around and around and around, it just continues to go in. If I turn this off, now when I start to sculpt in, you can see it's not really going any farther. You can see I'm just sculpting and sculpting and sculpting, and I'm just going back and forth with my mouse, but it's not really going any farther. If I let go of my mouse and then continue to sculpt, now it'll go a little bit farther, but but you can see now it's just eventually going to stop. I just keep on sculpting. It's not really moving. It'll only go a certain depth in before it stops, and you have to let go your mouse and then click again to sculpt, or when you're using your drawing tablet. So if you turn on the accumulate, now if you start to sculpt, it'll just continue to go out and out and out and out. You can see how far I'm sculpting that. So that's just my personal preference. I like it better for sculpting. Now there was also this front faces only, and what this does is it will only sculpt the faces that are in the front. So to show you what this does, I'm just going to turn it off, and then I'm just going to start to sculpt. And if I go right over here, let me actually try to get this to work. It usually works when you're sculpting things that are very close to each other. So you can see it's starting to happen when I sculpt here. If I just keep on sculpting, you can see it's starting to mess this up over here. Especially when you're sculpting like ears on a character, or basically when you're sculpting something that's very close to itself. Sometimes when you're sculpting, if you want to sculpt this, because this is pretty thin, it'll start to grab the sculpt behind it. So what this will do, if I turn on front faces only, it's only going to grab the faces that are on the front, and it's not going to grab these back faces, because over here we're actually looking at the faces in the back, but it was grabbing it. But now if I turn that on, front faces only, it won't pull around the faces that are back here. It's only going to pull the faces that are right here. And the same thing is for if we go over here and we play around with these, it's not going to pull these around. It's just going to pull around the faces that are on the front. So that's really helpful. I'm just going to Control Z this, but that's really helpful for sculpting as well, just so that you don't run into as many issues. Alright, so I brought this over to my drawing tablet. I just put on my drawing tablet glove. What this does is it makes my hand so it can smoothly move on the surface of the drawing tablet. So before we get started with the sculpting, I want to add in Jessica's reference image, her artwork that she created. So if you have like a second monitor, you could just put up some reference images, but just for the tutorial and also so that you can see it, I'm going to add this in. So I'm going to click right here and drag out, and that's going to add this other window right here. And then I'm going to click right here, and I'm going to change this to the image editor. And then from my file browser, I'm just going to drag in the image and just add it in right here, just so that we can see it as we're sculpting. Alright, so we're finally ready to get started with the sculpting. So there's two different main workflows that you can use for the sculpting. So if you just click and drag over here, all the way over, you can see that there's the remesh, and there's also the Dyn Topo. Now I prefer to use the Dyn Topo, so if you just click on this and turn this on, and again, it's also right over here if you want to use it right over here. I'm just going to use it right up here though. So what the Dyn Topo does is it adds clay as you sculpt, and it adds more geometry as you sculpt. And I really like this because that way I just feel like it's more creative. It's a more creative workflow. I don't really have to think about adding more geometry. So I'm going to be using this. The problem with this is that it can make your sculpting a little bit more laggy because it's trying to add geometry as you sculpt. So if you want to, you could use the Remesh Workflow. So how the Remesh Workflow works is you would change this to the size that you want. So then you just press Shift R and change this to the size that you want, maybe not quite that detailed, and then you press Control R or just click on the remesh button, and you can see that it remeshed it. And now if I just go here and start to sculpt, you can see I'm sculpting, but then let's say that I want to remesh it again, because after a while you can see there's not that much detail. I need to remesh it again. So what I do is just press Control R, and then you can see it remeshed it again, and it added a little more detail. And let me just go in here, and then maybe I want to remesh it again. You press Control R again, and now you can see it remeshes it again. So if you want to use this workflow, you can. I personally don't really like this workflow because I don't really like having to press Control R a lot of times, and I also just like to have a lot more detail. So I'm going to turn the Dyn Topo on by pressing that, and then I'm going to leave these how they are. The detail size though, I'm going to change this to something like maybe 5. You can change this to what you like. The smaller this number is, the more detailed it's going to be, but it'll also be a little bit more laggy if you make it super high detailed. So you can just play around with this and get it to whatever size you like. I like to sometimes go down to even like a 3 to have it very detailed. Okay, so let's start. So I'm going to use this clay strips brush. This is my favorite brush. And then to change the brush size, I'm going to press F. So F is the shortcut key. So you can see when I press F, I can drag up and then click, and then F and drag down. So you can see that because we remesh this, you can see that there's like these little chunks right here. So I want to smooth this out. And it looks like our symmetry got turned off for some reason. I'm just going to click on the X to turn that back on. And then also accumulate and front faces only. Just make sure those are turned on. Okay. So I'm just going to lightly press down with my drawing tablet and just start to sculpt. So I'm just going to lightly go around here and add more clay with the clay strips. And then once I've added a little bit more clay, I'm going to hold down the shift key as I sculpt. And what that'll do is it'll change it to the smooth brush, and it's just going to smooth it. There is a smooth brush here, but I like to use shortcut keys to speed up my workflow. So you can just sculpt, and then when you want to smooth something out, you just hold down the shift key and that'll smooth it out. All right, so I'm just going to keep on going here, just kind of going around here, adding more clay, and then just holding down the shift key and just smoothing that out, just because I want to add a little bit more detail here. So just going around here, holding down the shift key, smoothing that out. And then also the dog's face, right now the dog's face is pretty square, and I want to make it more round. So some things we can do is kind of like push this down a bit to make it more round. So to push in clay while you're sculpting, you hold down the control key. So I hold down the control key and I just start to sculpt, and you can see that that'll go down in. I'm just going to lightly go around there and then hold down the shift key and kind of smooth that out. So I'm just going to go along here, and like right here, I want this to come out a little bit so it's a little bit more round. So I'm just going to go along here, back and forth, kind of pop that out and then hold down the shift key. And then like right here, I'll hold down the control key as I go in, just because I don't want the dog's head to be super square. I want it to be pretty round. Now I want to pull the dog's head out a little bit so it's even more round. So to do this, I'm going to press G, and that'll go to the grab brush. And then I also want to make my brush bigger. So remember the F key, that'll change the size of your brush. You can also change the size of your brush right here, and you can also change the strength of your brush right here. The strength is at 0.4. I think I'm just going to turn it up to 1. Okay, let's just pull that out. Also, if you're wondering, F changes the size of the brush, but Shift F will change the strength of the brush. So those are the two shortcut keys. Okay, so now that I've made a really big brush and I have the grab brush, I'm just going to kind of tap and just kind of bring that out to make it a little bit more round, kind of on the top here, pull that out a little bit. Okay, maybe just like pop this out to make it a bit more round. Let's go back to the clay strips now. Start to add more clay. So you can see right here, I want to give this a smooth transition from his head to his neck. So I'm just going to start to go along here, kind of sculpt down, and then hold down the shift key and just kind of smooth that out. Okay, go along there, hold down the shift key, smooth that out. Remember to press Control S while you're sculpting every now and then, just to save the Blender file. And then just go along there, keep on sculpting, and then hold down the shift key and just kind of smooth that out. Now the front of the dog here, his chest is like really big. I want to make that smaller, so I'm going to hold down the Control key and just kind of sculpt along here, holding down the Control key. That'll kind of bring it back. You can see now that's a lot flatter. I still want it to be round though, but just not so far out. So I'm just going to hold in the Control key, kind of go back in there in some parts. And then again, holding down the shift key, you can just smooth that out. Also on the side here, the side of the dog, if you want to hold down the Control key, kind of go in there, and then hold down the shift key, kind of smooth that out. All right, how is that looking? Remember to move around your sculpt and look at it from different angles. Again, if you've never done sculpting in Blender before, then it would probably be a good idea just to watch my Sculpting with Blender for Beginners tutorial, and that way you'll be a little bit more familiar with sculpting. All right, and then right here, kind of the muzzle to the head, I'm going to just add clay, so I'm just going to go back and forth here, just so that it's a smoother transition, and then just hold down the shift key, just go along there and smooth that out. Also just hold down the shift key and just lightly smooth that out, so there's a smoother transition there as well. Now the nose here, I want this nose to be more of a triangle shape, so I'm going to hold down the Control key and kind of go along there just to kind of make that edge a little bit more smooth. And then to kind of make this more of a triangle, I'm going to just go along here, kind of make that triangle shape, go along there, and then I'm just going to smooth that out because it's kind of rough right now, so I really need to smooth that out. Add more geometry there. Remember to press Control S to save your project. So you can see right here, this isn't very sharp. I want this to be more sharp. So what I'm going to do is go to the Crease Brush right there, and then I can just go along here, and that'll crease that and just kind of sharpen it up. And you could also smooth it a bit if you wanted to. So I'm just creasing that edge there. Okay, oh, I just kind of smoothed it out, so let me just crease that again. Okay, and then I want to smooth out the top, so I'm going to hold down the shift key and just smooth out the top. Also, you could go to the grab brush by pressing G or just clicking right here. And then if you zoom in, you can kind of tap and just kind of shape the nose. So I want it to be more of a triangle shape, so I'm going to pull that down and then pull over here on the sides, just to kind of make that cute little triangle nose right here, like in the concept art. I'm going to go back to the clay strips brush now, and I kind of want to make these two kind of bumps here on the dog, like those two lumps right there, right here and right here. I don't really know what that's called. I don't really know dog anatomy too well, but what I'm going to do is just go to the clay strips brush, maybe press F to make my brush a little bit smaller, and then I'm just going to start by going along here and just making this kind of shape. So just going along there, pulling out that clay. Okay, and this is where the smile is going to be, that nice big smile on the doggy. So I'm just going to go along here, just kind of pop that out, go along there. I think I want to make a little bit more detail. So over here on the Dine Topo, I'm going to turn this down to maybe like a 4 just to add a little bit more detail. And adding more clay. Let's go to side view, kind of see how that's looking on the side here. Go around, make some circles, kind of pop that out. And then holding down the shift key, you can just smooth all that out, make it nice and smooth there. I don't want to smooth this though, because that would kind of mess up what we've done there. So I just want to smooth this circular part right here. So I'm just lightly pressing down on my drawing tab and just smoothing out those areas. Now, something I want to make sure is that if you don't need to follow me on this, I want to make sure that this doesn't kind of just go down. I want to keep it very kind of upright because it's kind of sagging right here. So I'm going to press G for the grab brush, and then I'm just going to kind of tap and just kind of pop that up, just kind of bring that up. I just want to make sure it doesn't kind of sag down because, you know, I've sculpted this quite a few times already. This will be the 4th time that I'm sculpting the dog. So I just found that when I was sculpting it some other times, sometimes it would kind of sag down. So I just wanted to make sure we didn't do that. And then also with the grab brush, I think I just want to pull this down just a tiny bit. Zoom out, just kind of look around from lots of different angles. Something else you could do is actually get Beagle Puppy reference images, or just get some other cartoon dog reference images. If you wanted to, that could help you out as well. I actually have a few other reference images here on another monitor just to kind of help me out. All right, that is pretty good. So let's go to the crease brush again. And I'm just going to go along here and just really crease this and then kind of have it come over. So I want to be kind of connected right here and then just kind of come out. Just really crease that, going down there, creasing that over, creasing that whole thing there. And then just trying to look at the reference, seeing how far up that smile is. We haven't added the eyes yet, so I might kind of wait to add that. And if you see me wearing glasses at some parts of the tutorial, that's because I'm actually slightly farsighted. So if I'm looking at close-up things for a long period of time, then my eyes will usually start to get strained. So I basically just use them as reading glasses when I'm looking at close-up things, mainly just on the computer. So let's continue this. So you can see here on this reference image, he has this nice big chin. So let's just go ahead and do that. So I'm going to use the clay strips brush and just go along here, kind of fill that out a little bit, and then kind of smooth that out, kind of what we're doing, adding clay, just kind of smoothing that out. And then I'm going to actually on here, because we use that like cube, it kind of is a little bit cubic right there. So what I'm going to do is just kind of go along here and hold down Control and just kind of bring that in a little bit. Just like that, just kind of bring that in, holding down the Control key, sculpting in, and then holding down the Shift key, and we're just going to smooth that out. Smoothing that in, you might want to add a little bit more clay there. And then just smooth that out. So it's a smooth transition between his head to his neck and then to his body. And then I kind of want this right here, his chin, to kind of just pop a little bit. So I'm just going to go along here, just kind of add more clay. Just make that pop a little bit and then just smooth that out. Okay, there we go. Just looking at the sculpt from different angles to make sure I get the shapes right. All right, let's go ahead and sculpt in the eye socket. So I'm just going to hold down the Control key and just start to go in here. And we're just going to make some holes for the eyes. And then we'll use separate objects for the eyes. So just going in there, okay, and then we'll just smooth this out. And I don't want it to be perfectly circular. I want it to kind of come up a little bit because in the reference here, in the drawing, you can see that the eye kind of comes up a little bit. So it's not perfectly round, it's more like an oval, so I'm going to do that as well. Just going to go around here, kind of zoom in, go around there. Just give it a little bit more clay, and then just hold down the Shift key and just smooth that all out. Okay, there we go. Just kind of smooth that out as well. I'm just kind of going back in here. Okay, and then just smoothing that out, holding down the Shift key to smooth. You don't really need to go too far back, but you just need to go back far enough that the eyes can fit in there. Now if I look back at this, I can just kind of see the shape from far away. I'm going to go to the grab brush, and then you can just kind of tap and change the size of this. So if you don't quite like the shape of it, I'm going to go to the clay strips brush again, and right here, I want this to kind of just pop out a little bit. So I'm just going to go along there, add some clay, bring it around, and then just kind of smooth it a little bit. All right, now I don't know if this is happening for you, but if I kind of look on top view, you can see this is kind of coming in and then coming out, and I don't really want this. So I'm going to go to the grab brush with G and just kind of pop this part. You might need to go down here, maybe from the bottom, that would be better, and just kind of pop that out, and maybe even pop that in a little bit, just because I don't really want it to be like that. That's kind of extreme, but just to show you what it was doing. All right, so now that we have the eye sockets in place, we can kind of see where we want that smile to be. So I'm going to go back to the crease brush, the brush right here. And then I'm just going to look at this, kind of seeing how far away this is. I don't want it to be exactly that far away because this is a 2D drawing, so it's kind of a little bit different in 3D. If I were to do that, I'd have to make like the smile like right there. That's pretty high up. Goes around there. So I'm just going to go around here, add that little crease in there. Just go around, and then just kind of hold down the shift key and smooth that out around the areas. Just kind of crease it even more. If you want to make your brush a little bit bigger, just kind of crease that in. I'm going to go back to the clay strips brush, just go along here and add more clay, and then just kind of smooth that out. Okay, take a look at that, see how that's looking. I think the smile might be just slightly too big, so I'm going to go to the grab brush and just kind of pull that smile in a little bit, just because it seemed a little bit too big. Alright, and then right here, I kind of need to smooth this out a bit, so just holding down the shift key, just going along there and smoothing that out. And then I think I will go back here and crease that just a little bit more to make it really nice. But just very lightly smoothing that. Okay, let's go to the crease brush. Just kind of go in here and start to crease that. And then you could just smooth it a little bit if you wanted to. That might help just a little bit. We already went around this, but I might just go around it again. All right, now something I noticed is it looks like the eyes are kind of coming together right here. So I'm going to go to the grab brush and just kind of pull that out just a tad, just so that they're not going in towards each other, and then maybe just smooth that out a little bit. All right, so I'm going to take a break from the face and just kind of move down here and start doing the legs. So I'm going to use the clay strips, just add a lot more clay here and just really smooth that out. We don't really want to see the lumps there on the knees or anything like that, so just going around along here. So just going along there, right here, also adding more clay, and this is sort of like the dog's shoulder. So what I'm going to do is just go along here, kind of in a circle, just to pop out a shoulder. I want to keep it subtle, but I think it will help. Just kind of go around there, just pop out a shoulder, and then add more clay here to just kind of thicken that up. Okay, and then really just smooth that out. I do want it to be pretty subtle, but I do want it to be there. Making a smooth transition between the leg and the torso. Smoothing that all out. Just going down here. I'm just going around the entire leg. You could also do the other side too. You could sculpt the other side. And then coming down to the feet. We're almost to the feet. So the bottoms of the feet, what I'm going to do is just kind of zoom in. And with the clay strips, I'm just going to go along here and just add a lot more detail there. Because you can see how rough and jagged that is. So I'm just going to go along there. When we remeshed it, it added all those jaggy bits. So I'm just adding clay all around there, adding in a lot more detail. And then, now that we've added that, I'm going to hold down the shift key and just go along there. And you can see now that's a lot smoother. And then, again, a seamless transition. So it can be a little bit creased right there, but not too much. Also, you can see that right now my orbit is a little bit weird, like where I'm rotating around. So what you can do is you can hold on the Alt key and then click. I'm using my front pen button, so Alt click, and that's going to bring you over to areas. And now you can see I can rotate around his leg there. So let's just keep on going. There's kind of a bump here. I don't know if this is happening for you or not, but I will just kind of add more clay there, and then just hold in the Control key and go in there, and then hold in the shift key and just smooth that out just to kind of make that a lot better. There we go. And I do want the legs to kind of come back just slightly. I think that really helps to make it look more like a dog. And again, taking a look at the reference images here. In the reference here, in the drawing, it does kind of pop out a little bit. I don't really like this too much, so I don't think I'm going to really have it. But you could do that if you want. Of course, you could sculpt a different type of dog if you wanted to, grab some reference images and then kind of change it. You could totally do that if you wanted to. And then again, right here, kind of on the chest and the belly, just going along there, adding more geometry, and then just smoothing that out with the shift key as I sculpt. Just kind of smoothing all that out, because you can see it looks like a circle and it looks like a cylinder there, all those shapes, those primitive shapes that we added. So we just smooth that out, that'll just look a lot better. So I'm just going along there, going back and forth, adding more clay, and then holding down the shift key, just smoothing that out. And on the top here as well, and on the back. Now he does look a little bit underfed, like he's very thin, so I'm going to add a lot more clay down here. Just kind of thicken that up. Thicken up his kind of waist and his belly. Just give him a little bit more. Okay, that's definitely better. Control S to save our project. Let's just kind of take a look at it so far, kind of look around. I think it's looking pretty good. All right, let's go ahead and do the back legs now. So I'm just going to move over to the back legs, and we're doing pretty much the same thing as the front legs. So I want to make the kind of like a hip right there. So I'm just going to go around here, just lightly go around here, kind of make a hip. Okay, just kind of blend it into this, and then hold down the shift key. Just smooth that shape out, because I do want it to be pretty subtle, but I still want it to be there. And then smooth that out too, because that's kind of popping out a little too much. Okay, and we can go along here, add more clay there, and then just kind of smooth that out. Now, one thing I wanted to mention, if you're trying to sculpt like in detailed areas where there's like other stuff in the way, like the tail and the other leg, there's something that you can do. So if you just want to see this side, what you can do is just go to this angle. You might also want to press 5 to go to orthographic view. That might make it a little bit better. And then what you can do is you can press Alt B. So when you press Alt B, it's going to bring up this box and just select the part that you want to see. So just like that much, and then let go. And you can see that now it's kind of like cut the mesh in half, and so that other leg isn't in the way. So now what you can do is you can just start to sculpt, and you can see it adds this little gray border. So it's still there, but it's just hidden it. So now you can just go along here and you can sculpt without that other leg getting in the way. So it's really helpful. And then when you want to get rid of it, you just press Alt B again and everything comes back. And you can see it mirrored it over because the mirror is still on. So I'm going to do the same thing. So I'm just going to go like this, press Alt B. And now I can just go along here and get the inside of these legs. I don't have to worry about the other leg getting in the way. So it's super helpful, super useful. I use it quite a bit when I'm sculpting like characters. When I'm sculpting faces, I don't really have any need for it, but when I'm sculpting like creatures or characters, it can be really helpful. Adding more clay to that. And then like, I don't really want to be able to see this right here, like the kneecap. So I'm just going to hold down the control key, sculpt in, and then we can just go along here, add more clay. Okay, and then just smooth that out, holding down the shift key, going onto the back here, doing the same thing. Okay, and then smoothing that out. I do need to smooth this out. I'll just press Alt B to undo or to get rid of that boundary thing with the Alt B so that I can see the whole thing. Just going along here, smoothing that out. Take a look at it, kind of zoom out, look around, see how that shape is. Smoothing everything out here. Alright, so let's go and sculpt the tail. Now, an easy way that I've found to sculpt the tail is to actually go to this inflate brush, and then just make your brush a little bit bigger, and if you just go along here, it's going to add more clay. If the Dine Topo is on, it's going to add more clay, and just kind of inflate the tail. So it just kind of makes it a bit bigger, a little bit thicker, and then if I hold down the shift key, you can see that it's smoothing it out, and you can see that it's totally adding more clay, because now we have a lot more detail there. So that can be really helpful using that inflate brush for something like that. Going along there, see that? It's really inflating it. You can go into the other side if you'd like, and then just smoothing that all out. Going inside there, inflating that a bit, and then just smoothing that out. Alright, and that tail's looking pretty good. Nothing too complex. I just wanted to smooth it out and make it very round and looking good. That's slightly rough, so I'm just going to add more clay and then just smooth that out. I'm becoming a little bit of perfectionist at this point, just kind of going along here and trying to make sure it looks really, really nice. So to sculpt the feet aren't really round like this, they don't really come in. So what I'm going to do is press G for the grab brush, and I'm going to just kind of pull this out a little bit and then pull it out right here a little bit. I think the grab brush, I'm actually going to change the grab brush to a 0.5 strength. Okay, make my brush really big and then just go along there, just kind of tapping And then also on the back here, you could maybe just pull the dog's feet out just a tad. And then also just pull that down a little bit. And that's a better shape. So let's go and do that for the front one. So I'm just going to go down here. And then I'm just going to tap. Kind of tap on both sides. Just kind of pull that out there. Okay. Go onto the top here. Just kind of tap and push it down. And then just pull this out a little bit, and then you can smooth that out. Let's go back to the clay strips. I'm just going to go along here and just kind of add more clay, just kind of like how I have for the whole thing. Just kind of adding more clay, just very lightly, and then just kind of smoothing that out. And then we will add in the toes, but I wanted to smooth out the feet. And then, yeah, see how those feet are nice and smoothed out? I want to do the same thing for here. So I'm just going to go along, smooth that out, add more clay. We'll just add more clay there. Okay. And then hold down the shift key and smooth out those feet. And just like the front legs, I want to go along here and add more clay to the sides here because you can see that's really rough. So I'm just adding more detail all around. And then hold down the shift key and smooth out those edges there. Press Ctrl S to save the project. And let's go ahead and make the toes. So there's 4 toes here. So to do that, I'm going to go to the clay strips brush. And then I'm going to go down here. And to make 4 of them, 4 toes, I'm going to start by creasing the middle. Okay. And then just crease 1 here and 1 here. So 1 in the middle and then 2 evenly on the sides. So once you've creased that, you can move up a little bit and then go along here, just crease that in and then go up to the top and again do the same thing. There we go. So now you can see there's 1, 2, 3, 4 toes. Once you've done that, you can just continue to go in and crease it deeper if you want it to be deeper. I'm kind of zooming in so I get a little bit more detail there. And then if you're sculpting this and one of your toes maybe on the side here feels a little small, sometimes they do get a little small, what you could do is go to the clay strips and just kind of go along here, add more clay, and then smooth that out. Let's go to the crease brush now and do the same thing for the front toes. My orbit is totally messed up, so again, zoom in, and I'm going to hold the Alt key and click with my front pen button. And that's going to depend on how you've set up your drawing tablet. I just have my drawing tablet set up as the default. So if you want to just go into your driver settings and just check to see what it has set up. So let's do the same thing. Go down here, just kind of go back and forth. Make a crease there, and then 1 crease here, and then 1 crease here. Maybe make my brush a little bit smaller. There we go. So now we have 1, 2, 3, 4 toes. Let's go up, do the same thing, follow that crease up there, and then again, do the same thing, crease that, and crease those toes. The strength is a little low, so if you want to turn that up, if you turn it up way too high, it's just going to be way too strong, but that's a little bit better. I don't have to press quite as hard. I'm just going to hold down the shift key and smooth out a few of these parts. And then if a toe feels kind of small, you could go to the grab brush, just kind of pop that toe out a little bit. Or you could also go to the crease brush, the clay strips brush, go along here and give more clay to the toe and then smooth that out. And then just one more thing that I want to do to these feet. I kind of want to make a lump right here, and then just smooth that out, and then just make a little bit more of a lump right here. So it's kind of like it goes in here, so I might actually hold down the Control key, have that go in, because that's how feet usually are. They usually have kind of a bump on the back and then the front, and then on the middle of the feet, they just kind of go in slightly. They kind of go up slightly. So I'll do the same thing on the back one, just go around here, add a little bit more clay, hold down the Control key, push in the clay a little bit, and then right here come out just a little. And then we'll just smooth that whole thing out. So we are almost done with the sculpting, but we need to do the ears. So let's go ahead and do the ears. They're not too hard. So we're having this problem again where it's kind of hard to sculpt inside here and also like on the side of the face. So you can move it kind of to the front and then press Alt B, box select that, and then let go. And there we go. Now we can sculpt that part of the ear a little bit better. So I'm not going to really do too much to the ear, but I'm going to define the shape a little bit and add more geometry. Go along here, just kind of buff that up just a little bit, because you can see there's kind of like these sharp edges right there. So I'm just going to add more clay and then smooth that out. All right, and I'm kind of limiting myself here with that Alt B, so I'll do that again, Alt B. Let's go to the top here, smooth this out. I might just add a little more clay here on the top of the head and then just smooth that all out. All right, now I just want to make the face on the side here a bit more smooth, but it's kind of hard to get to. So again, Alt-B, just gonna drag like that. There we go, that gets rid of the ear, gets it out of the way. And I can just smooth out the side of the face there. And then Alt-B, and I'll just hold down the Shift key and just kind of smooth inside there, up inside the ear a little bit. All right, so this is it. This is going to be the finished sculpt. So I'm just going to go back here to the layout. All right, and I've also hopped back over to my main setup. So I'm just going to shade this object smooth. So I'm going to go Object and Shade Smooth. All right, so let's add some eyes now. So before we add the eyes, I'm going to press Shift-C, and that way the 3D cursor will be put in the center of the scene. Let's press Shift-A now, and I'm going to add a UV sphere. Now again, I'm going to want to mirror this over, so I will tab into edit mode before moving it, and then I can just move this. So I'm just going to press G to grab, bring it up here, scale it down with S. Remember, my shortcut keys are right here. You can see in the bottom of the corner. Okay, so I'm just going to press G to grab, bring it in, and just bring it into the eye socket. Now what I want to do is rotate this over so that we can kind of see it from the top. So I'm going to press R to rotate, X on the X-axis, and I'm going to type in 90, enter, and then just press S to scale this down. Why we're doing this is so that the geometry kind of goes in a circle right here, because we're going to be adding materials to these different faces right here. And so if this were rotated over like this, we couldn't really make a circle right here. So because this is now rotated on the top, so we can kind of see the top of the sphere, we can add the eyeball material. Okay, I'm going to press 1 for front view, just kind of see how this is looking. Now, we could scale this up like this, but I don't really want to do that. I'm just going to scale it up and make it bigger, push it back in. So I want the eye to be very round. I want it to be perfectly round, but how the eyes are open, like the eyelids, they're going to be kind of coming up like that. That's totally fine. All right, there we go. So now let's click on Add Modifier, and we're going to add the Mirror Modifier. Now it should mirror it to the over to the other side, but if it doesn't, you can click on the mirror object and then just select the dog. I'm not going to do that though, because I have the origin point in the center there. And then let's also just shade this object smooth. Now you can see that the eyelids don't quite match up with the eyes. So I want to just play around with this and just slightly change it, like push this out a little bit and push this in a little bit. So I'm just going to click on this, go back to sculpting, and then you could use your drawing tablet. I have my drawing tablet right over here, so I'm just going to use my mouse. I'm just going to go to the grab brush and just do a couple things. This I'm going to pull out slightly, and then this I'm going to pull up, and this I'm going to pull over. And also just maybe pull a little bit more forward. Very subtle, but it will help just to kind of fit that around the eyes a little bit better. Maybe just pull that back a little bit and down. And that's better. That is a lot better. Okay, let's go back to the layout here and just see how this is looking. And then I'm going to need to shade this object smooth again because we sculpted it. All right, so there we go. There is the dog model so far. We still have a lot to do, but we've made a lot of progress. So this is going to be it for part 1 of the tutorial series. If you want to watch part 2, you can click right up there on the screen. I'll have the link right up there, and also there will be a link to part 2 in the video description. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you've been enjoying this, and I will see you in part 2.